It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Monday, February 17th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Wyoming Senior Olympics. Experience the excitement of the Winter Games, February 20th through the 22nd in Pinedale, and support the SAFE initiative. For event details and the full schedule, visit WyomingSeniorOlympics.com. A 7-year-old Byron girl who'd been fighting for her life after her 3 sisters were killed in a murder-suicide last Monday died Saturday afternoon. Olivia Blackmer's family confirmed that the girl held on for 6 days after she and her sisters were shot by their mother, Tranielle Harshman, in their home in Byron on February 10th. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland has been keeping in contact with the family throughout their ordeal.
They were in a desperate state, putting out a public Facebook blast Thursday evening, like, if you have a pulse, pray for her. They were worried about brain swelling, but it had gotten to a point where it wasn't safe to remove part of her skull. That would have been catastrophic, according to Blackmer's post at the time. And so they were just trying to get by on medication, and ultimately the things they tried failed.
Olivia's 3 sisters died on the scene: 9-year-old Braylee, Brooke, who was almost 3, and Jordan, who was 2. Their mother died Tuesday in a hospital in Billings, Montana. Well, less than 2 days after Friday's disastrous and fatal Green River Tunnel collision, responders are still working to clear an unknown number of piled-up vehicles. The ongoing efforts highlight the grievousness of an incident that has little precedent in state history. Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson reports that the rescue and recovery effort will be a long and uncertain process.
There were 26 vehicles involved in this crash, and they've upped the fatality count to at least 3. And they've also confirmed to Cowboy State Daily that there's 2 people hurt. However, those numbers aren't final. As of Sunday afternoon, there still had like 10 vehicles that they still hadn't gotten out of the tunnel. And what's really striking is the photos that they put out from inside the tunnel. It looks like a nuclear wasteland in there. I mean, it is amazing that anybody got out of that. The fire was so hot, they couldn't even get into the tunnel to see what was going on for hours. And they've been working around the clock to clear it out. As to what caused it, they're not saying yet. It might still be a while before we really know. People are speculating all over the place. I would just caution, you don't really know until they tell you.
A trucker who narrowly escaped Friday's explosive pileup in the Green River Tunnel described the horror inside and posted video footage of the immediate aftermath on social media.
It was a heck of a day. I just feel so bad for the people burning alive in there, man. I couldn't even try to help them. Smoke was so bad. It's just a bad pileup, and things happen, man, I guess. I don't know. Tell your people you love them, you know, because all change in an instant. Life's pretty fragile.
Along with the trucker, a local woman who lives in Green River also posted some videos that really gives us some of the first looks inside the tunnel. She was allowed to go in and check on her car with officials to see if she can get it. She couldn't, but her voice, she's very emotional. She describes in there making her way out. It was filled with smoke and how she ran her hand along the wall to get out.
The bridge and tunnel inspector with the Wyoming Department of Transportation said the tunnel isn't going to collapse. He noted extensive fire damage, fallen concrete, exposed rebar, and debris on the ground, but he said the mountainous rock itself is not collapsing. Well, nearly a year after the torture and death of a wolf in Daniel, Wyoming, drew worldwide scorn, running predators down with snowmobiles remains legal in the state. Representative Mike Schmidt of LaBarge told Cowboy State Daily that Wyoming needs to close the door on the practice of using vehicles as weapons against wolves and other predatory animals. Schmidt sat down for an interview with Outdoors reporter Mark Hines last week.
Is that your understanding and your sentiment, that as long as that door is open, as long as this practice is allowed in Wyoming, it's going to be a stain on the state's reputation?
I don't think it will stop until that activity is made illegal, to use that machine as a weapon to maim or kill any wildlife. Like I said earlier, I'm really concerned about the long-term consequences if we don't do something. I know people have done it for decades. Well, all the hunting technologies and weapons of choice we have today, I mean, it's just not necessary anymore to use a machine as a weapon.
And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Very wintry weather will be found statewide over the course of the next several days. We have Arctic air that's going to try to push into the far north and northeastern areas of the state. This will be especially true tonight, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as sub-zero temperatures over the north and the far east will be likely, especially for you folks in northeastern Wyoming, as Arctic air backs its way westward towards that part of the state. At the same time, we have Pacific moisture and energy pushing off the west coast and colliding with that Arctic air. This will be producing snow over the mountains of Wyoming today, tonight, and tomorrow, then across some low elevations of the state in the south and the east later today, tonight, Tuesday, and into Wednesday. So this is going to cause travel concerns. We are going to see a wide variety of temperatures across the state. Extremely cold in the north and the east. Temperatures chilly, but not nearly as cold in the west, as the Pacific will dominate the west and the Arctic will dominate the east.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
They want to know if we received a relay call before.
Yes, go ahead.
We need to have a party catered. When you receive a relay call, someone who is deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind, or has a speech disability is calling you. It could be the most important call of the day.
The University of Wyoming is trying to improve its public image. The school has come under fire from the Wyoming legislature over the past year for issues like diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, programs on campus. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson spoke to UW President Ed Seidel, who said the school is launching a Wyoming First agenda for teacher education and putting more effort into actively promoting its Wyoming-focused programs.
The school is engaging a number of kind of collaboration and partnership efforts with teachers around the state, K through 12 teachers. And it's kind of a mentorship program that the university is engaging with its staff and with teachers to kind of help with the efforts of keeping teacher retention and from having them quit, and hiring teachers as well. The school also recently spent $2 million on a 30-second Super Bowl ad celebrating Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen and his connection to the university. So they've really been trying to kind of push against some of the negative narratives that have been brought out about the school.
For more than 30 years, UW has operated on a block grant funding model with the legislature, which means that the state approves funding for the school, but the school, unless specifically noted, decides how it will spend that money. However, a number of legislators want to explore the option of potentially changing that funding model, so the legislature has much more scrutiny over how UW makes its budget. Well, it's been almost 7 months since anyone has seen or heard from Natasha Requejo. The 41-year-old mother of 7 children disappeared last July from her home in Lusk, a small rural community of around 1,400 people in the southeastern corner of Wyoming. Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker reports that her boyfriend at the time said Requejo left town on her own, and Lusk police tend to agree. Her friends and family, however, say they're concerned and said there's no way Requejo would not have been in touch with them by now.
She was actually reported missing in July, by the end of July, and her case was entered into DCI. The reason I am just now covering it is I had trouble finding people to speak to me on the record. It's a risk to come forward. So her friends were very brave in coming forward, and they were able to share her story. The police chief, Gordon, who I spoke to, believes there is no criminal element to this missing person case, and he believes adamantly that she left Lusk because she was cited in Casper 2 weeks later. And that was an eyewitness testimony by a convenience store clerk who said he recognized her by her missing person poster. However, she was never verified missing on surveillance cameras.
Anyone with information is asked to contact the Lusk Police Department or DCI. Tipsters can also report anonymously on DCI's website. There's an ancient deep-sea adventure, no scuba gear or submarine required, in Wyoming at 7,300 feet above sea level. The adventure is in Yellowstone National Park at Monument Geyser Basin, where there are some of the world's most unique cigar-shaped smoking stone cones on the planet. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean spoke to a geologist who explained that normally to see these kinds of smokers would take a trip 6,900 or more feet under the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
When he sees these above ground in Monument Geyser Basin, he's like, how did this happen? There would have been a shallow sea across that area millions and millions of years ago, but after that, the Ice Age moved in, right? And that just scours everything clean. So thinking about how might that have happened, the thermal activity was continuing to happen there in Yellowstone. The ice is maybe up to 2 miles thick. It's melting under there. It's creating like a little glacial lake under the ice where these smokers could have formed. And then when the ice age kind of melted away, you're left with these underwater cones where they really shouldn't be, way up high, 7,000 feet above sea level.
Yellowstone is one of the most unique places in the world, with half of the world's geysers in it. So if there's a place in the world where smokers would somehow magically appear above ground where no smoker should be, Yellowstone would be it. And two rare 79 series Toyota Land Cruisers were spotted near Laramie on I-80, and photos of these collectors' vehicles caused an uproar among auto enthusiasts. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that these particular vehicles aren't legal in the U.S. and are often seen in the Middle East, equipped with rocket launchers, machine guns, and other weaponry.
You can't get these 70 series Land Cruisers in the United States. You can't legally import a lot of the ones that people want because there's a 25-year moratorium, if you will, on importing foreign cars. If someone was really determined and really wanted to, they could fly down to Nicaragua, buy one for $60,000 and drive it all the way through Central America and get it to Wyoming. There's nothing saying you can't do that because you're not importing it. You'll never be able to get license plates for it, but you can have it in Wyoming if that's what you want to do.
Toyota started making the 70 series Land Cruisers in 1984. Production continues uninterrupted to this day, making them among the most popular vehicles in the world. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to drop in on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake Nichols, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.